That's really the biggest thing in the beginning is just creating a lot of content, trying out, different things that you're talking about, different styles, stuff like that. Because it's
Yeah.
both a combination of like what works for you, be darn thumbs up. Um, because you first have to figure out what works for you. Because if you don't follow, it's the same way with like a workout program. Like the best workout plan in the world isn't going to work if you hate doing burpees, and that's a main staple, kind of a thing.
Hmm.
So find the stuff that you like, and then you just keep honing in on it. I was talking with my buddy Kyle end of last week about this too, because we've been doing this content buddy thing for almost 3 years now with him, and it's crazy to see the difference in the way he's able to speak and articulate how like his thoughts come out
Mm.
more succinct and clearly. A lot of times he would kind of ramble on and then circle back,
Yeah.
but he's gotten through that. He's like, oh yeah, it's made me so much more aware of all those little different, not flaws, but those things in speech that we all have picked up over time that
Yep.
make us difficult to listen to or difficult to understand or boring or things like that. And yeah, it's cool to see because it's really like he hasn't, it's not like he's done any coaching or taken any course or anything outside of that. It's simply from showing up and talking about it, and then you become more aware of what you say, what comes out of your mouth, how it comes out of your mouth, and you just naturally over time you'll get better and refine it and sound way better.
Brand, that is something that I already know that I need to work on because it's very easy to just ramble, especially when you feel like you need to like over explain something to make sure whoever you're speaking to understands what you're trying to say in the position in which you're coming from. But I'm learning a lot about like just brevity, just around saying what you need to say in way less time with way less words. And I think that's really important for especially in the beginning in terms of content as well. And I know you, I've kind of learned this from you, where it's like there's no such thing as like too long content. It's just too boring. And so like if you are going to talk for 3 minutes straight, 5 minutes straight, 10 minutes straight, like you better be really good at communicating, telling stories, and holding engagement for the person that's watching it on the other end. Um, I don't know. I have zero idea what it all looks like, but for me, I think in the beginning, it's gonna try. I'm gonna try and like keep it as short as possible to increase the chances and the likelihood that someone that starts a video of mine like finishes it. And then over time, as like people are like, tell me more, like I want to learn more about this or that, whatever, then I think you can start doing more long form stuff. But it's hard to do that in the beginning when it's like, why am I listening to you?
Yeah, that's really the hardest part of the whole thing is finding that voice and finding that thing that you have. Yeah, I think an easier way for a lot of people, or excuse me, let me start that over. An easier way for people to think about it is start with the things that A, you're really interested in, and then B, the stuff that you've done where other people have told you, like, oh, wow, that's interesting, or I can't believe you do that, or things like that. Because if you look at most of these big creators and people that we all follow online now, whether they're business influencers, relationships, whatever, most of them have somewhere in their backstory just a really cool, impressive thing that they've done. I mean, Alex
Mhm.
Hermosi is big because he had the $100 million stuff, right? He sold a gym coaching business for like $45 million in a world when most coaches like are barely eking by and have a personal brand that like would never, you know, never survive if they left it type of thing.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, like he was big in the UFC early on and, was a comedian too. So like he's done cool stuff. He goes out elk hunting and all those other things. So it's just they do cool things and they do interesting things that people care about. And I think that's a
Hmm.
big thing that a lot of people miss is just talk about the stuff that you're interested in and that people have told you is interesting, and from there you kind of hone in and refine it. But the brevity
Yeah.
piece is also really big. I learned that through writing with my copywriting background. Is just seeing how much you can actually take out of sentences and it still makes exactly the same point. And I think a lot of that is we don't get good feedback from people that we talk to. I think some like a lot of the technology and stuff like that has made it really difficult for people to like express and pick up a lot of those nonverbal cues and stuff now. So we aren't getting the feedback to know if like that thing is hitting or if that point that we made actually like landed. So we keep circling back instead of just asking, did that make sense? You
Yeah.
know, do I need to clarify anything, or like what questions do you have, stuff like that.
Yeah.
um but yeah, it's an interesting thing once you become aware of it. My big thing, I am painfully aware of how often I use the word like. i
Hmm.
feel I feel I'm back in middle school or something. Like, there it goes, like just
Yeah.
came out now. So
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
one I'm working on. And it's now that I'm looking at these transcripts after the videos, doing the editing and stuff like that, it oh my god, it's here and here and here and here and here.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
weird thing.
No, it definitely is. And honestly for me, like I notice it when I'm watching sales calls, like my sales calls, right? I'll get off a sales call with somebody, whether I close them or not, and just review game tape. And I think that's one of the best ways to understand how you are as a communicator. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched back and then I've been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like I said it like that, or that was really confusing. They probably didn't understand what I was trying to say, or like, bro, I just talked for 2 minutes straight without a word from their end. Like I did way too much talking there. And the only way that you get better at that stuff is honestly reviewing game tape, reviewing that film. And most of us, and I'll put myself out there, like I don't like rewatching my stuff.
Mm.
For whatever reason, I feel like I sound weird. I don't know what it is, but you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times, like you're not going to get the feedback from the person that you're talking to on the other end. You've got to be able to do call reviews and review it yourself so that you can see what areas you need to improve in. And for my biggest thing is always has always been like brevity. Just
Mm-hmm.
say what you need to say in like half the words. And then also what I've been working on is actually bringing the person that I'm talking to on the other side into the conversation. And so I do that by asking questions. I use "Does that make sense?" a lot. Um, I use a question like, um, "How do you see this being different than what you've done in the past? Um, is this something that you think that you could implement? Uh, what do you like about this?" Things like that. Even when I'm like in the middle of like the pitch or whatever the case may be, just so like I'm bringing them along for the ride and they're not just glazed over watching me explain something. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's helped me get a lot more buy-in
Mm-hmm.
from the person on the other side when they're like coming along for the ride, as opposed to just watching me perform, so to speak, and then getting to the end and it's like, wait, what did I've retained like 50% of what you just said. You know what I mean? So that's something that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think that makes me think of something else with kind of today's society and the social media on the phone is we've we've almost forgotten to have two-way conversations. We're so used to either being spoken at or just speaking to with creating these videos
Mm-hmm.
that we just go and go and go and go and then stop instead of having those like kind of back and forth and things. I'm curious on the brevity part because like I also just nerd out about words and language and things and why we have those because every country culture stuff communicates differently. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So would being from the South, and the South kind of has that more cultural appearance of like being slower, a lot more based on like relationships and like chatting with people in the square or on their porch, things like that. Did you have kind of a lot of that growing up, or like in your kind of like community now where there's just a lot of people sitting around talking, just gabbing for hours and things like that, where, you know, and a lot of the probably like prominent people in there are that way because they just kind of get on those soapboxes and soliloquies. You know, like they're the person that just talks all the time, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of what you relate to as how you're supposed to do it and how like to do it well, kind of thing. Is that any of that resonate?
Yeah, so probably less around the square type feel and more around honestly the church. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church, and so like when you're in church all the time, like you're used to just sitting there and listening to sermons and teachings and things of that nature. Like you're not most of the time growing up, like you're not providing feedback to the speaker. They are teaching you something and they're talking for a good 30, 45 minutes straight. So like that is probably where most of the way that I communicate comes from. It's just but from being a preacher's kid and growing up in the church and watching these guys and these women speak about different things without in such a way that wasn't so conversational, but more so from a teaching and preaching standpoint. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
when I was kind of experiencing that, like the people that I've always found communicated well, were able to leave me with an impression that like I just understood everything that was being communicated to me, and it a lot of times it took them some time to get there, and so the storytelling was really great. The foundation of what they were trying to talk about was really great. They were good at tying in points and making it like real world comparisons and drawing it to something that I may have experienced or seen, and then tying it back to the point that they were trying to make. And in order to do that, you've got to take the people that are listening on this sort of journey to be able to do that well. And so I think that like that's where a lot of my like, okay, like I want this person, like I want Fran to really understand like the context in which I'm coming from and the point that I'm trying to make. So I'm going to be as detailed as possible in order to make that happen and increase the likelihood that he like is like yes 1000% like I'm tracking. And so I've seen that hurt me because sometimes it's like you take too long to get there and then you start rambling and then like you forget the point that you're trying to make and then you're trying to tie it back and then it becomes this like whole thing. And so that's where like for me I'm trying to like cut it way down. But it all started from me watching all these great communicators like talk for 45 minutes straight. But like when you're talking in a conversation with somebody, you're not ever like doing that. Or you're not doing that.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard because it's, you know, like when you're at church in a scenario like that, like all they have to like you're there and have to listen to them, and if you wander off, big deal. But for the most part, like you have to sit there and listen. If someone, you know, you're in a sales call, like someone's like, I'm gonna tune out and then just not buy the thing. So
100%. 100%, bro. And so it's been fascinating to learn that. And honestly, like when you're on a sales call, it's less about the product or service that you believe can help the person and more about problem finding and more about them you asking open-ended questions at the right time with the correct tonality in order to get as much information out of them as possible to first see if you've got a solution for them in the first place. And so that's something that's really really helped me because in the beginning it's like you study the product, you study the service, like you want to know it like the back of your hand and you're just worried about like the pitch doesn't matter as much as actually listening to these people and understanding why they're even there in the first place, the things that they've tried in the past, why it hasn't worked, what they ultimately want, and why that is important for them. So then your pitch can become a lot more powerful when you're able to tie in their pain and how you're actually going to solve it with your product or service. But if you don't ever take that time to do really, really great discovery and fact finding and understanding who you're talking to, your pitch could land on deaf ears, even though it could be the thing that they need exactly. They don't feel that way because you weren't really listening to them in the first place. But if I can take your pain and the issues that you've been struggling with over the last X amount of years, you've tried X, Y, and Z, hasn't worked, and I'm able to tie that into here's how this is different, and this is what we do in order to address X. This is how we do in order to address Y. Does that make sense? Do you see how that could be different? Do you see that actually working for you? Things like that, and it's tying that in, but it all comes on like making sure that you actually care about the issues that the person is presenting you with before you even get to the pitch.
100%. I think that's something that so many, people in the business world forget, whether they're an entrepreneur, a salesperson, marketing, whatever, is the knowing that the most important thing is that your prospect or audience feels heard and listened to, far and away more important than the actual product. Because
Yeah.
but yeah, and like a great example is like stuff in the fashion industry, right? I mean, a shoe is a shoe is a shoe, but there's nothing that special about Nike Air Jordans except for the story around it and how people are made to feel if they wear it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So understanding that and knowing, like you said, those pain points and what is driving the prospect and what those deep needs are that they're trying to fulfill with the product is so much more important than listing off any of the benefits. It just goes way beyond that.
Yeah, because then I mean, you just sound like every other salesperson out there just trying to close a deal and collect a commission on it. And so when you're able to create that trust on the front end by making it all about them, obviously it is all about them. Like you're on that call to advise them to make the best decision for them, even if it's not with you. And
Right.
that is like the key there.
And it's so much more powerful when they tell you something and you go, "Oh my God, Susie had this same, this similar thing going on with her gut, and I just talked to her last week, and like she said, it's been 3 months and there's been no issues." Like,
Yeah.
absolutely, like
Yeah.
way more important than, "Oh, hey, we've got all these probiotics in there are gonna make fix this, that, and the leaky gut and all this." Like, yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if it helps Susie over in Arkansas that I've never met, no idea who they are, is like it's gonna
Yeah.
help me.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good stuff. What's I had this question. Hold on, I wrote it down. Fascinated by this. So, what is kind of switching gears here? What's one loss that you had in business that later set you up for success or was like pivotal in forward momentum? Like, had you not had that loss, like you wouldn't have been able to move forward.
I think the hold on, let me start that over. Losses in general, I think, are what propel us forward.
Mm.
Um, because as you mentioned that, two scenarios come to mind. One recently that just happened at the beginning of the year, and the other one was actually like at the beginning of my entrepreneur journey because I originally got into like this online marketing stuff with owning a gym. And I found out really quickly that I don't like owning a gym. I like the business and the marketing stuff, but I don't like owning the gym. And it kind of fractured a couple friendships I had, which
Mm.
later is fine because we wanted different things in life. And that was cool, but losing the gym and like kind of going through the struggles and the pains with that really showed me that the marketing side is where I need to be because where my partners were resisting the stuff that I wanted to do, this other guy in Ireland was listening to everything I had to say, and we grew his gym to 30 grand a month in, I don't know, like 3 or 6 months. Dude was an awesome sales guy.
Yeah.
And I just kept feeding him leads with Facebook ads, and it worked. So losing that gym, I think, is what really set me on the course to all of this. And then more recently, I had an old client reach back out to me that needed some help and things like that. I was a little hesitant about it because wasn't the best parting. Very different ideas on doing business and things like that. But I'm like, okay, I'll try it, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and within 3-4 months, I kind of turned everything around, took an email list that was getting 12 to 15% open rates, got it up to 60 to 70% open rates with their newsletter and welcome series, brought in, you know, doubled their ROAS, and I think brought in somewhere around like 70 grand in sales from a few different promotions, reviving that email list. And it still wasn't good enough. Um,
Hmm.
and, you know, it was just quickly became more of the same stuff. And we parted ways again. And it was one of those things that really kind of helped make it all finally click of like, hey, you know what you're doing, dude. You know, you don't, and the problem isn't you, it's that you haven't been working with the right clients. So like
Yeah.
find the people that focus more on these aspects or these parts of business, and you're going to do a lot better. And that's kind of set me down on this trajectory. And then also too, like where it will also really help too is it's really shown me the importance of self-promotion, which I have been notoriously bad at and resisted for a long time. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, the main reason you aren't doing the work you want to is because you haven't talked about the results that you've gotten so
Mm-hmm.
that more people want to work with you. Like no one knows what you're doing. Like even like your good friends in the industry, like when you talk to them, they're like, "You did that?" I'm like, "Shit, yeah." So I got to talk about it
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so I think the losses in general are what finally show us that something needs to change. You know, I think that's the really cool thing about business is in most of the rest of our life, we can get away with suboptimal behaviors, beliefs, actions, things like that. You know, like if you're in a regular job, you can usually skate by. In relationships, usually your partner will like put up with crappy behavior, things like that. But in
Mm-hmm.
business, the market will not lie to you. You know, like
No.
if you are doing the wrong thing, you won't make money. Simple as that. And like you can keep trying it. I've seen a lot of clients that'll like double down on things that are no longer working and it just keeps going downhill. Or
Mm-hmm.
you can adjust and you can
Yeah.
figure out where the where the deficiency is, where you're not good enough yet, and what you need to do. So if you
Yeah.
actually look at the losses as an opportunity to learn and grow, you can get a lot of value from them.
Man, that's really good. That's really good. So, what do you do now? Now that you know kind of like what a client that you don't want to work with looks like, how do you like on the front end filter to at least give yourself the best shot of working with people that you do want to work with and would enjoy working with? Like, how do you protect yourself against that?
I think the biggest thing is having very clear expectations up front, just a lot more clarity in the communication, especially around what you won't do or what they don't get kind of thing.
Mm,
That's always been something I've struggled with where start working with a client doing, you know, some media buying, some copywriting stuff, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, hey, can we do this? Hey, can we do that? I'm like, sure, sure, sure. And
mm,
next thing I know, there's an extra 10 things that were outside the original scope of work.
hmm.
And I'm like, this is now a problem.
Yeah.
So being very clear on, hey, these are the deliverables that you're going to get in this time frame. Um, this is how it's going to work. And then I think the other big thing too, and we're starting to see this a lot more, at least I am in my marketing circles, is not making any promises or guarantees really. I think that's something that needs to die because so many of these online businesses just have such wildly different models and internals that you can't really predict, right? Like I've seen average lead costs of like $30 be considered amazing in some industries, and they're
Yeah.
absolutely killing it. And other industries, you'd be laughed out of the market if you were talking about $30 lead costs, you know. And
Yeah.
it depends on what sort of upsells that they have, average order value, different things like that.
Hmm.
Um, So the other thing that I think in general, if you're going in as like a service provider of some sort, is having some kind of lower end test product almost that you can kind of gauge, like, hey, we're going to spend 30 days doing XYZ thing just to see how your stuff's doing. Like, so I guess here, for example, with email work that I do, because like that's like the only kind of copywriting work I'm going to do from here on out is emails, because that's where I do the best, I enjoy the most, and have gotten the best results. The thing I'm going to be doing first is, hey, we're going to do a 3-day re-engagement series. That's going to go out to your whole list over kind of a period of time, and it's designed just to see like how dead your list is with the way I do things, right? Because I've come in behind other agencies or people before that couldn't get things to work in the emails, and then I do. So I don't really listen to clients anymore when they say this is wrong or that's wrong or this is going on. It's like, hey, this is my test that I do with everybody to gauge and get the metrics and the information that I need to know. And then
Mm.
from there, I can tell you based on that, here's what I've done in the past and what I think might happen. But I have no idea because everybody's list is different. We might have just hit a great little pocket of people with something, and that's it. I don't know. So I
Mm.
think those are the two big things: just being very clear on what you will do and what you won't do, and then stop with any kind of upfront guarantees or promises, and just saying like, "Hey, I've got this process for figuring out. We'll see if it works for you." And if you do, great, we'll keep going. If not, then I hope you find something that works for you. And that's how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good, especially when you are building something and you're starting out new. You feel the pressure to just lay over and concede to the client, um, to just get the deal, just get it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever you need. Like, I got you, type of thing. And you're right, man. That can cause so many more problems because then you open yourself up to areas that you may not be an expert in, but you may know a little bit about. And now the expectation is, because I've asked you to do it, I expect that you know how to deliver on this 1,000,000%, even though it's out of the scope of work, and all to just close the deal or just get that book of business. But then I think it ends up hurting you in the long run. When I say you, I don't mean you personally. I'm just saying you, business owner, whatever, because now you're falling away from the thing that you do best just to close the deal and just to get someone in. Now, I think there's a time and a place to concede in the beginning to just get things going. Um, but opening up the whole gambit in terms of what you're willing to do, I think I personally think is a mistake, and you've got to be able to be okay with maybe somebody walking because you're unwilling to do some of the things that they're asking you to do, not because you're trying to be a jerk, but because that's not your scope of work. Like, that's not where your expertise lies.
Absolutely. The thing that I've found works well for clients, because a lot of times when I get copyright jobs, they'll be like, oh, can you do the page design as well? And I'm
Yeah.
like, do I know how to build a page in like ClickFunnels, WordPress, any of those other platforms? Absolutely. Will it look like a kindergartner with crayons and spray paint did it? 100%.
Yeah, go
So
find someone else.
right. It's like, hey, I'm a copywriter. If I had everything my way, the whole internet would be Google Docs, right? It'd just be
Yeah,
text on screen, which I know is absolutely boring and most people don't want. So I try to avoid the design stuff,
yeah,
you know? And when
yeah,
and like when you can kind of pose it like that, um, it relieves a lot of the pressure, and then it becomes one of those things where like now they're just like, oh, maybe I don't actually want them to do that for me. And
100%.
where I think the problem arises is that so many of these online business owners don't have any kind of understanding of fair market value for work, because that's the one thing that's, because it's so easy to start a business now, anybody can do it without really like any prior knowledge. So they're going to come in and they're like, well, I can get someone in this third world country to do it for XYZ price. That's, a third, the fifth, or whatever. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, you can. And it's going to be obvious. And, and then the other thing too is with the fact that we have all these softwares that make it so easy to do a lot of these things, like to actually put it together, people forget that there are certain principles to like design principles of like what actually looks good and why things look good together, why they work well, and why they should be put together in this way. um and so many people today just haven't gone that deep on those topics and that subject, and they're just like, oh yeah, I can put the boxes here and make them a different color, and I learned a little bit of code to add shadows here and make these things overlap. And it's like, that's nice, but it's not the same thing as someone who has gone to design school or
Yeah.
is actually a computer programmer that knows how the code is supposed to work and be built out and things like that. And those people are expensive and they cost money, but usually you only have to do it once. Like,
Hmm.
a client that I worked with, they were using the same email series for like 3 or 4 years, and made several $1 million off of those. So even, if you were to pay 50,000 for a series like that, I mean, that's still a great return.
Incredible return. Yeah.
And, and so many people are just like, oh, words on a page, like that should only be like 500, $800, right? It's like, well, not quite. One of my favorite analogies or stories is the guy, there's a factory that whatever machine goes down, and it's costing
Yeah.
them like millions of dollars a day that it's down, and have a couple guys come in and try to work on it and fix it, and none of it works. Finally, they call a guy in, walks over to the machine, takes a look at it for about 5 minutes, opens up one compartment, tightens a bolt, and it's back up and working. Sends him a bill for $10,000. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. He didn't hardly do anything. Like, we want itemized. It's like, okay. It's like, wrench, $15. Knowing where to use the wrench,
Yeah.
$9,985.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like, that is so often forgotten
Yeah.
in today's world because we've made so many of these things so easy to quote unquote do.
It's commoditized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we feel like you're gonna go and you want to get different quotes and go with the cheapest one. That's what you're trained to kind of do in business,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's value to that, um, depending upon the scope of work that you're looking for, as well. I think that matters like a ton in terms of when to know, like, all right, like I gotta cut the check for this thing because I need high quality, I need it done right, and someone who's reputable and has done this versus like, okay, this is maybe more of like a lower skilled type deal. I don't have to go with the highest bid, so to speak, and I can kind of shop it around. And I think that's one of the things in business that you've got to kind of learn when and where to invest heavily in something or like pull back and try and get a more competitive rate.
Yeah, I think that's so absolutely correct. I think a great example to kind of drive it home for people is with content production, right? Especially when you're doing online videos. I'll see so many people that are doing these like fancy edits and fast cuts and videos that like based on like the skill level that takes like knowing what blah, blah, let me start that over. Like I see a lot of online business owners that have the kind of Hormozy style edits or all these Mr. Beasts where they're doing like 15 different cuts in the first 5 seconds and stuff like that. And it's like, that's cool, but you're just starting out with content, and I'm sure those videos are costing you a couple $100 each. Like, you don't need to invest in that yet.
Yeah.
Invest more in just getting the content out there. Like, this is a time where you can kind of cheap out and just use a
Hmm.
VA to edit some clips, throw some captions on, and test stuff out. And then when you
Hmm.
find something that actually hits, double down on that with the bigger investment. Like, that's
That's
where you
so
need
good.
to kind of think about spending some of those dollars. It's like, hey, are we like doing some immediacy testing stuff, or is this something that we want to use for 6, 12, 18 months or hopefully
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah.
And when you can kind of think about it in that respect, um, it really changes how much you're willing to spend. Because I think that's another thing that we're seeing a shift in with consumer behavior is we've gotten so fed up with this commoditization of everything,
Hmm.
like IKEA furniture, all this, basically all fast food is the same. Most of the stuff that we buy at the store, like to the point where the same like four companies own pretty much like the entire grocery store, and there's just different color labels on the boxes.
Yeah.
Um, the cookie cutter spec home stuff like that. I think we're starting to see a shift back to people wanting more handcrafted, handmade, craftsman type work, where we're going to see more cool websites and people with one of a kind furniture, or
Hmm.
selling rugs that they made, or jewelry, or like all sorts of different more like one-off individual stuff that we're going to pay more for, but it will last a long time, both inside business and in our personal life. I think that's going to start up.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and it's why Hebron House even exists, because we are the boutique option to all of the major property management groups that are out there that are publicly traded and will sign anyone on, charge anywhere from 7 to 10%, which is very, very low. But a lot of times you're going to get 7 to 10% worth of quality out of your property as well. And so now we're seeing a shift where, guys like me come into the industry and we are going to charge more than 7 to 10%, but we're going to be a lot more hands on. We're going to be able to uh, leverage internal marketing, leverage offers, different types of tech stacks and things like that to make the guest experience incredible, streamline all the processes from how to find a guest to what the cleaning looks like on the back end, and then also take care of all the financials for the owner as well. So it's literally a seamless process for them. They get their profit and loss at the end of the month, and then they also get their money ACH directly to their account, right? And so what I'm seeing is more to your point, like people are preferring more boutique, more individualized, more customized type of services and products because they feel like the value is a lot better, and it allows people like me to come into the marketplace, work really hard, provide a really great service or product, and earn what you're asking someone to pay for it, but what they're getting in return is far more and far better than going with the cheaper option a lot of times.
100%. And I think that's something so cool about what you're doing because, I know personally, whenever I go look for an Airbnb or something like that, the first thing I'm doing is looking to see what's the coolest place in the area, like what's the most unique, and then I'm going to look at price.
Hmm.
Because, like, if otherwise, I'm just going to stay at a hotel, like if it's just a house, like I might as well just stay at a hotel and, save myself some of those headaches.
Yeah.
But I want something cool and that's unique and different so I can actually like come back or like have some cool pictures or like that adds something extra to the trip. When
Yeah.
I remember we went out to Montana to Glacier a few years back and we stayed at this really cool house that had this giant moose head in the living room, and my kid loved mooses at the time because we saw a few out there and he got a stuffed
Yeah.
animal and stuff like that. So he wanted his picture taken next to that, and he talked about that for a couple of years afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you mean like the moose house type of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's cool memories and cool experiences like that that just adds something extra to those trips. And especially because I think you said like there's a big children's hospital down there, so like
Yeah.
families that are going there for the children's hospital having something that's well thought out for the kind of experience that they're having with, like you
Hmm.
said, the blackout curtains and the sound machines and things like that. Like
Yeah.
that is such a huge value add on to
Yeah.
people, that you normally wouldn't get that in kind of a vacation experience.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When you're willing to invest in the experience of somebody, it's going to cost you up front, but like the return on that is infinite, because what we're seeing is a huge shift from just a regular space, and actually like um, lower booking percentages in what we would call like economic type properties, and increased booking percentages in what we would call luxury type properties. So properties that maybe have a hot tub or a pool or like a cool mural or like a game room, things that create that experience. And so like people, what I'm seeing is people are willing to pay more for places like that than they are to save money on like a regular looking house. Because when you think about it, like you're traveling to a city for maybe the first time, or it's like a vacation, like you want it to be memorable. And so most times when people are going to travel, like they're willing to spend a little bit more to create that experience for themselves and their family and their friends and things of that nature. So investing in that on the front end has been highly beneficial, especially in a market like Nashville, where I'm seeing an increase in available units year over year, meaning that there's more to choose from. So if there's more to choose from, if you're not standing out and differentiating yourself from the market, you're going to get cut underneath the legs and have to cut prices, and just you're struggling to maintain occupancy rates and things of that nature. And the biggest way to combat all of that is to be as different as possible than all of your competitors around you.
100%. And I think the other thing that a lot of business owners don't understand is when you provide that really awesome experience, that over the top experience, whether it is for an Airbnb or, doesn't matter what you do, people talk about it. And
Yeah.
that is such an important thing and a great second order effect of putting that extra work. It becomes free marketing for as long as you have it. If you have something that really stands out, I mean, look at those coffee shops and places downtown that'll have like the butterfly wing murals or different
Yep.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
girls just flock there to take pictures. And what do? Post on their Instagram
Yep.
with the big old logo of the coffee shop next to it. And now
Yep.
everybody else wants to come there and they're going to get their coffee and take their picture too.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think experience is everything. And to your point, you're right. Like it, it, it provides a piece of organic marketing that will give you infinite returns. That's one way to know if your product is good or not, your product or service is good or not. If you are making money without you having to spend money to go get it. And that's with referrals and word of mouth and things of that nature, because we are all wired to share with all of our friends and families anytime we've had an incredible experience, whether it's a restaurant, an Airbnb, a brick and mortar business, a workout, whatever. Like if it's dope and you had a really good time, it's like, yo, like I went to this spot, like you got to go check it out. And I mean, that's something that can be overlooked, but especially when you're first starting out, like you don't even need to worry about ads and ad spend and all that type of stuff. Like get really good at the thing that you're trying to do. Maybe even offer it for free so you can get feedback on it and make it even better. And then you can start to charge for it or increase prices, whatever the case may be. Once you know, like, I've got a winner. And when you're making money, because people are just like, hey, I heard about this thing like that you do, like, how much does it cost? Like, how do I get in? Whatever. Like, that's when you know you've got something.
Yep, 100%. And I think the other thing too, because I love it what you said about we're wired to talk about those cool experiences. Gossip, whether like a lot of people don't realize, gossip is a very long or very old like social currency that we've used for hundreds and thousands of years. So on the flip side, talking about bad experiences
Yeah.
um, is even something more ingrained with us because we want to share like, hey, avoid this dangerous thing, right? That
Yeah.
goes way back. Um, so if you aren't providing that over the top experience, at best, people are going to say, oh yeah, it was like everything else, because anytime you go somewhere on vacation, what's the first thing you ask? Where'd you stay? Where'd you stay? How is that? How is that? Because everybody wants to travel to wherever you went to. I mean, like you talk about vacation, people are instantly like, oh yeah, I want to go there. I would love to go there.
Yeah.
Where you say, oh my God, this amazing place. and now they're like, oh, cool, maybe I will go there. Or if it's like, oh, it was terrible, like, and people are just gonna list off every detail that was wrong when
Yeah.
they travel somewhere, because like that's just, like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to sleep in this crappy place now. My whole
Yeah.
vacation's ruined. So you
Yeah.
have to be super aware of that.
No, 100%. And honestly, like I know people are scared of it. We've learned to lean into it because we've gotten bad reviews. We've gotten bad in 4 years of doing this. Of course, we've gotten bad reviews. And at first, it used to be like, all right, we need to get rid of these reviews as quickly as possible. But then, as you kind of understand and learn about what's going on, you learn to like look at the reviews and just read them from like a context of like this is here to help us, not to just bash us. So like, is what they're saying, does it have any merit? And bro, sometimes it does. Like sometimes it does. It's the reason why we have blackout curtains now. Because
Mm-hmm.
people are like, the way that the sun rises, like it's rising at like 7 a.m. Like you can't even sleep. I came on this trip to sleep in and relax and all that. And it's like, oh yeah, we didn't think about that. Like let's put in some curtains. We started investing in better beds. Like sleeping was a huge thing in the beginning that we just, you try and do everything as cheap as possible because it's a large expense to outfit a whole place. So it's like get everything as cheap as possible. When we did that with the beds, we heard a lot of complaints about it. So now we buy nice beds and we get great feedback on the beds because people are sleeping and waking rested. Or a lot of our units are in an apartment type building and they were complaining about noise. And so what we did was make sure like we adjusted for a sound attenuation and added padding and things to the floor to make sure the noise wasn't an issue. And then on top of that, we added sound machines too. We got all this stuff based off of feedback and reading the reviews. So yes, it can be painful. Yes, it can be easy to take personally, but feedback, and especially negative feedback, a lot of times is really good and just is an indicator that you have an area of opportunity to get better in to improve the experience for the next person.
Yeah, those negative reviews are money opportunities, because you know that the one person you complained about, there's at least 10 more people who thought the same thing,
Yep.
and 100 more people who are going to read that review and go, oh, bad night's sleep? No thanks.
Yep.
And now, and then even it becomes even more powerful then when you do fix it and you have new reviews of people like, oh my god, the beds here were amazing, because now people are like, oh my god, they actually like listen and like make changes.
Right. Right. 100%. Yeah, that's been pivotal to us, and vital just for the business in it and of itself to just always, and it's a reminder to continue to always improve what you're doing. Like what's working right now and today is good for right now and today, but you always need to be getting net promoter scores. You always need to be reaching out to your clients, the people that you serve, and just making sure, hey, is what you're getting valuable to you still? Is there things that we're doing that you don't like? Is there things that you would like to see more of? Like, how can we serve you in a way that excites you to continue working with us? And you never know the answers to those questions unless you actually do it and then unless you actually ask.
100%. 100%. I love that. And it's so cool that you guys do that. I mean, I'm sure it's been, a big reason for a lot of your success right now.
Yeah, yeah, and we're still learning. I mean, we're not perfect in every
Yeah.
in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, there's still pitfalls and issues that we deal with, and so I want to also be as transparent as I possibly can. Like, it's not always a walk in the park and 100% occupancy and you're like absolutely crushing it. Sometimes you're not, and there's vacancies and there's issues that you got to fix, and you got to figure out what's going on with the algorithm and look at SEO and where are we landing on the pages, why are we landing on the search pages. Maybe we need to rearrange some photos, maybe we need to adjust some copy. Like, this is an ever changing thing, which is why I believe like the boutique operators have a real opportunity to come in and make noise, because the bigger management companies, they're so big. Like, there are some things that they just cannot do. Like, where we are smaller and nimble, we can adjust and move quickly. You're talking about companies that have thousands of units across the world, in different markets that have different needs and demands and avatars that you're trying to all serve, you're not going to be able to quickly make an adjustment here and there and test it out. Like, it doesn't work like that when you're that size. So the boutique operators and the people that are smaller like me can come in and say, "Ooh, I'm seeing this in the market, or I saw this last month. Hey, let's test this and move this around and see how this next month goes," and do it quickly and get way faster feedback.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that's, kind of going back to seeing more of the craftsman stuff that started this whole conversation. I think that's what we're going to see more of, especially as AI becomes more popular and we're able to do a lot more of that computer tech things just by like typing regular messages. But that distrust and distaste for those large corporations is growing, and being able to have more, because like more people are having the opportunities to do like side hustle to full time, where they can start with, one property or one client or something
Yep.
like that, and kind of iterate their way to success, like you said, and
Yeah.
try these different little things or this little different thing, and really build out cool and unique businesses that, they'll never get to be, tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue,
It's okay.
but that's okay. It becomes a high six figure, mid six figure job that's 20 hours a week or 40 easy hours a week for someone that they actually enjoy doing, and help a very specific clientele who
Yeah.
love that kind of thing. Like thinking back to different like woodworking people, like some specialize in cabinetry, some specialize in different types of furniture, and like that's
Yeah.
okay, because
Yeah.
they're going to create way better products around that specific thing,
Right.
and people are going to appreciate it really a lot more.
Yeah. 100%. I totally agree with that. I was listening to this thing, this podcast.
Wait,
Um,
bef- before you get into that, can I? Merlin's barking again. Let me
Go
just
get him.
check
Yeah.
something.
You're good. You're good.
Scary old lady in the walker going by.
Yeah. He was barking at a lady out there.
Yeah, there's a old lady that lives in the neighborhood. It's got a walker, and every time she goes by, it's like, dude, chill. She's not a threat. It's okay.
Oh shoot, bro!
Um,
It's 10 past. Sorry about that.
oh dang, it is. That's
I
fine.
didn't even, I didn't
Um,
even think about that.
I didn't
Um,
even realize that either. Good
yeah,
conversation then.
yeah. Great conversation. Great conversation. I'll write down what I was gonna talk about next time, and maybe if we got time, we'll get into that.
Right? We still haven't gotten to the first
Bro, I
thing
think
yet.
that's. Honestly, I think it's okay. Like these
Yeah,
are
no.
like backups if we're both like,
Mhm.
what do we talk about now? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but I
Yeah,
think
it's almost. Sorry, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's almost a positive that we haven't had a chance to get back to those questions in like 3-4 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So I'm just, and the list is growing, and we haven't even touched any of these yet. So it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool, man. This was good stuff. I got to jump to my next thing. But appreciate you. Excited to keep going with this and see what next week looks like. How quickly are you gonna get this stuff up? Will you just text me when it's up? Because I like to look at it.
Yeah, I just got last week's load up into Opus Clips.
Oh, okay.
So feel free to check that out. They did just do a nice big update on the system, which is super cool. And now you can add sections, because one of my biggest complaints with it is like it used to give you whatever the clip was, and you might have a little bit before or after that you could change the start date, but you're really limited in that.
Yeah.
Now it finds the clips, but then you can click add section and go back through the entire transcript and find whatever else in there
Oh,
too.
cool.
So gives you a bit more freedom and stuff like that
Beautiful.
to use. So I'm sure the next time you pop in, they'll have like a little pop up that says new editor, watch
Okay.
the YouTube video. So it's like 2
Okay,
minutes.
great.
It's pretty easy. But yeah, so last week's is in there. I was having trouble, like even as recently as yesterday, I was still having trouble with my internet being super slow. But as soon as I get this downloaded, here, I'll get uploads. So probably later today or tomorrow.
Sweet. I love it. And then I've already just blocked out time on my calendar tomorrow to an hour tomorrow to go through this stuff and start getting it on the schedule.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
Love it. Sweet. All right, bro. We'll talk soon.
All right, dude. Have fun.
All right, man.